"Oh, Demiurge, thank you, Lord Momonga." At the same time Demiurge flapped his wings, Momonga began his descent. On the way he put his helmet back on. The dark elf at Momonga's landing spot looked up as if he sensed something. Surprise broke out on his face when he saw the armored figure. When Momonga alighted softly on the ground, Mare came scampering over, his skirt fluttering. Momonga could almost see underneath. Not that he was interested, but he wondered what was going on under there. "Lord Momonga, welcome. I most humbly thank you for coming. Mare, you don't have to be so scared, and you don't need to rush around. If it's hard for you, I don't even mind if you drop the formalities when it's just the two of us at least. I can't do that, not toward a supreme being. Sis ought to do better too. We can't be so impolite." He didn't really want to make children stand on ceremony, but is that so? "If that's what you've decided, then I have nothing further to say. Just know that I don't mean to force you, Mare." "Yes, sir. By the way, what brings you here, Lord Momonga? Did I do something wrong?" "No, Mare, I came to praise you." Mare had been looking a little twitchy because he thought he was about to be scolded, but his expression flipped to surprise. "The work you're doing is extremely important. We may have a warning network, but it's entirely possible that regular people in this world are over level 100. If that's the case, the most important thing we can do is prevent them from discovering us." Mare nodded. "So I want you to know how satisfied I am with your flawless work and how much peace of mind I get by entrusting this to you." One of Momonga's ironclad rules from his days as a working adult was this: good bosses praise their subordinates' work as appropriate. The Guardians had a much higher opinion of Momonga than he warranted. In order to not lose their loyalty, he had to act the part. He'd maintained their golden legacy all this time, but to disappoint and be betrayed by the Guardians and other NPCs made by the guild members would brand him as unfit to be guild master. That's why he had to try to be a great ruler. Do you understand, Mare? Yes, Lord Momonga. He may have been dressed like a girl, but the firm resolve on his face marked him clearly as a boy. Okay then, I'd like to give you a reward for your good work. But it's only natural that I should do this work. It's also natural to give a reward for a job well done. And no, it's not. We exist to serve the supreme beings. It's a matter of course that we should get things done well. They repeated this exchange several times, but their opinions continued to run parallel to one another. Beginning to sense futility, Momonga decided to offer a compromise. Then let's say this. There's no problem if it also rewards you for continuing your loyal work in the future, right? I feel sure it's okay. Momonga compelled him to be calm and took out the reward. It was a ring. Lord Momonga, I think you took out the wrong thing. It's no your mistaken, my lord. That's a ring of Aints Ulgaun, a treasure only supreme beings may possess. There's no way I can accept such a gift. Momonga was taken aback by how hard Mare was trembling. It was true that the ring was a 1 in 100 item made exclusively for members of Aints Ulgaun. 41 of them had been passed out, so there were 59 rings with no designated user, no, 58. In that sense, they were quite rare, but part of why he wanted to give it as a reward was how useful it would be. Mare seemed ready to bolt, so in order to calm him down, Momonga reached out carefully. Relax, Mare, I can't. Why, you just said that a ring of the Supreme Ones was going to be my reward. Mare, just think about it. Transportation by teleportation is prevented within the Great Tomb of Nazareth. Isn't that inconvenient sometimes? Hearing this, Mare seemed to begin to calm down. If we are attacked, I want each floor guardian to act as commander on their level. If they can't teleport, if they can't escape easily, that won't work very well. That's why I want you to have the ring. The ring resting on Momonga's upheld palm gleamed in the moonlight. Mare, your loyalty pleases me greatly. I understand that as our subject you feel you can't accept a ring that is our sign, but I think you grasp my intentions. Now take it as an order. But why me? Are you giving them to all the guardians? I plan to. But you're the first because I think highly of your work. If I gave them to people who hadn't done anything yet, the ring's significance as a reward would be diminished. Or are you saying I should lower their value? And not at all, my lord. Then take it, Mare. Take it and continue serving Nazareth and myself. Trembling, Mare slowly bowed and accepted the ring. Seeing him like this, Momonga felt a bit guilty. His other aim in giving away the ring was to make it so it wouldn't be immediately apparent who it was anytime someone teleported. When Mare slipped the ring on, it changed size to fit his slender finger. He looked at it on his hand a few times and sighed in amazement. Then he turned directly toward Momonga and bowed deeply. Lord Momonga, thank you so much for giving me such a valuable reward. I'll do my best to be worthy of such a treasure. I'm counting on you, Mayor. Yes, my lord. Mayor finished with a boy's valiance on his face. Why did Bubbling Teapot dress him like this? Was it to be the opposite of aura, or was there actually a reason? As Momonga wondered about this, it ended up being Mayor who asked him about his get-up. Lord Momonga, why are you dressed like that? Oh, because I wanted to run away. There was no way he could say that. Mayor looked up at him full of expectation, her eyes sparkling. How do I get out of this? If he messed up here, his performance to date as a great boss would all have been for nothing. There was probably no world where a subordinate would accept a superior who wanted to run away. If only I were more confused, then I would be leveled out automatically, thought Momonga. He now had a new predicament to escape from when a helping hand came from behind. It's simple, Mayor. Upon turning around, Momonga was captivated. Standing in the moonlight was a woman who could have been called beauty incarnate. Illuminated head to toe by the pale light streaming down from the heavens, if she had said she were a goddess, he would have been convinced. She shifted her black wings. It was Albedo. Right behind her was Demiurge, but she was so beautiful, it took a moment to notice him. The reason Lord Momonga was wearing armor, and the reason he was hiding his name until a little while ago was that he didn't want to disturb our work. If Lord Momonga were to show up, everyone would naturally stop what they were doing and demonstrate their submission to him, but that is not what Lord Momonga wishes. So he created the persona of Dark Warrior to say that it was unnecessary to stop our work to pay him respect. Momonga nodded vigorously to her. Right, Lord Momonga, how very like you to perceive my every intention, Albedo. As captain of the Floor Guardians, it's only natural. No, I'm confident that even if I weren't captain, I would still know your heart, Lord Momonga. The less than thrilled look on Demiurge's face, after she bobbed her head with a smile, made him wonder a bit, but Momonga couldn't really say anything, since Albedo had gotten him out of a jam. I see, said Mayor, seeming impressed. Momonga looked over at them, and saw something that made him do a double take. For one moment, Albedo had opened her eyes so wide it looked like they would fall right out of her head. She rolled them, like a chameleon might do, to look at Mayor's finger. Her face returned to normal before Momonga could even think anything of it. She was back to her beautiful self. It was as if her previous expression had been a hallucination. Did you need something? No, nothing. Okay, well then, Mayor, sorry to bother you. Take a break and then keep working on the camouflage. I will. Then if you'll excuse me, Lord Momonga. Momonga nodded gently. Mayor scampered off, stroking his ring. And what in the world brings you here, Albedo? I heard from Demiurge that you were here and thought I would come pay my respects. I apologize for appearing before you in such a filthy state. She said she was filthy, but it didn't really seem that way to Momonga. Certainly there was some dust on her clothing, but it didn't mar her beauty. You needn't apologize for that, Albedo. Your radiance could not be dimmed by a little dust. I do feel bad for running around with such a flawless beauty like you, but this is an emergency. Sorry, but I'm going to need you to keep bustling about Nazarick a bit longer. For you, Lord Momonga, I would run any distance. I'm grateful for your loyalty, Albedo. I should give you one of these too. One of what? I wonder. As Momonga took out a ring, she lowered her eyes a bit and tried to keep her features neutral. Of course, it was a ring of Aints Ul Gown. You need one of these too, since you're the captain of the Floor Guardians. Thank you, my lord. After Mayor's reaction, the lukewarm reception was a bit of a letdown. He soon realized he'd misread her. Albedo's lips were twitching, as if she were desperately trying to hold her expression together. The jerking of her wings was probably also the result of her trying not to flap them. Her hand, which had opened at some point, was shaking. With all those signs, he'd have to be stupid to not understand how she really felt. Strive to be loyal. Demiurge, I'll have one for you another time. Understood, Lord Momonga. I shall endeavor to be worthy of such a great ring. Well, I finished what I came to do. I guess I'll head back to the 9th level before I get scolded. Albedo and Demiurge saw him off with a bow as he teleported away with his ring. He had the feeling that right as the view before his eyes was changing, he heard a woman's voice shout sweet, but he figured he had misheard. Albedo would never use such an inelegant expression. They were nearing the village's edge. Behind them, Henry heard the clanking of metal, and at a regular pace, too. Praying in her mind, she glanced back. As she'd thought, as she'd worried, a knight was chasing them. It was so close. She wanted to hurl the words in frustration, but she held them back. She didn't have any energy to waste. She took ragged breaths one after the other. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it would explode. Her legs shook, and she felt like she might run out of strength and collapse to the ground at any moment. If she had been alone, she probably would have despaired and lost the energy to run. Her little sister, whose hand she held, gave her strength. The wish to save Nemu's life was the only thing keeping Henry going now. She threw another glance over her shoulder as they ran. The distance between them had not changed much. Despite the armor, the knight wasn't slowing down. The difference between a trained knight and a village girl was painfully clear. She was sweating, and her entire body was assailed by coldness. At this rate, she wouldn't be able to escape with Nemu. Let go of her hand, she heard a voice say. You might be able to make it on your own. Do you want to die here? The voice asked. It might be safer to split up. Shut up, shut up, shut up. She ground her teeth and gasped a rebuke at herself. I'm the worst big sister. Nemu looks like she's about to cry, so how come she does? It was because she believed in Henry. She believed her big sister would save her. Clasping the hand that gave her the energy to run and the courage to fight, Henry thought, who could abandon a sister like this? Arg! If Henry was severely fatigued, Nemu was completely exhausted. She cried out as she tripped and nearly fell. She didn't fall because the two of them were connected by their tightly held hands, but having to pull her threw Henry off balance as well. Hurry, I am. But when they tried to run again, Nemu's leg cramped up and wouldn't move right. Henry panicked and went to pick her up. She realized in horror that the knight was right next to them. The sword the knight held was slick with blood. His armor and helmet had both been splattered with blood as well. Henry stared the knight down, shielding Nemu. There's no point in resisting. There was no tenderness in his words. He said them with a sneer. His slimy tone implied he could kill them either way. Henry's chest burned with rage. What was he talking about? The knight slowly raised his sword. Faster than he could cut her down, Henry smashed her fist into his iron helmet as hard as she could. You think I'm that easy? Gua, she put all her anger and all of her will to protect her sister into her fist. She wasn't scared of hitting metal. It had been a punch that contained her whole body and soul. She heard the crunch of bone. The pain shot through her entire body a moment later. The knight staggered from the impact. Let's go? Yeah, bearing the pain. They were just starting to run when Henry felt something red hot on her back. NGH, The humiliation of having underestimated a village girl must have made the knight angry. What had saved her was that he'd lost his composure and swung so carelessly. But now she'd run out of luck. She was injured and the knight was mad. The next blow would surely be fatal. Henry glared bitterly at the sword raised over her head. She could look at it with the sternest expression in the world, but its ominous sparkle told her two things. One, in a few seconds, she would almost certainly die. Two, as a village girl, there was nothing she could do to escape. There was some of her own blood on the tip of his sword. It reminded her of the awful pain spreading from the wound with each beat of her heart. She remembered the hot sensation she'd felt when she'd been cut. She'd never been in this much pain before. It scared her so much she felt sick. If she threw up, maybe the burning in her chest would go away too. But Henry was trying to find a way to survive. She didn't have time to vomit. Although she was nearly discouraged, there was one reason she couldn't give in to spare her warmth for her sister. She had to at least save Nemu. That thought didn't allow her to give up. But the knight in full plate armor blocking their path sneered at her determination. The sword came down. Whether achieved by some trick of extreme concentration or her brain being activated by the life-threatening situation, it felt like time had slowed down. Henry flailed for a way to survive, for a way to save Nemu. But there was nothing. If she had an idea, it was to use herself as a shield, a last resort. She would take the sword with her flesh and make sure he couldn't get it out. She'd de-grab onto him somewhere, or maybe even onto the blade itself as it cut into her. In any case, she'd grab as hard as she could and never let go, not until the last of her life flickered out. If that was her only option, she just had to accept it. A smile of a martyr appeared on her face. This is all I can do for my little sister now. It was unclear whether Nemu would be able to escape the hell their village had become on her own. It was entirely possible that there was a lookout making sure no one ran into the forest. But if she could make it through this, she at least had a chance. For that slim chance, Henry would bet her life know everything. Even so, fear of the imminent pain made Henry shut her eyes. She braced herself in the raven-black darkness for the agony that would come. Seated in a chair, Momonga gazed at the mirror directly in front of him. The image reflected in the mirror, about 3 feet in diameter, was not Momonga's. Instead, it reflected a grassy plain from somewhere else, as if it were television. The grass calmly swayed in the breeze, proving it wasn't a still image. The sun, just starting to rise, gradually banished the darkness over the plain. This pastoral scene was a far cry from the hopeless landscape of Helheim, the great tomb of Nazarik's one-time world. Momonga lifted a hand and slowly moved it to the right. The view reflected in the mirror slid to the right as well. It was a mirror of remote viewing. It would display a specified location, making it an item handy for player killers, or PKs and PKKs, which were PK killers. However, players could easily conceal themselves with anti-intelligence magic, and it was vulnerable to counterattacks from reactive barriers, making it an item of questionable utility. But as an item that could display what was happening outside, there were plenty of reasons for Momonga to use it in his current situation. As he watched the grassy plain go by from overhead, he thought it looked like a location from some movie. So if I move like this, it'll scroll the screen. And I can switch the angle like this, drawing circles in the air. He kept changing his view. For hours now he'd been using trial and error to search, but had yet to find any sentient and preferably human beings. He silently focused on the monotonous task, but since all that came up was the same grassy plain, his motivation began to dwindle. He glanced out of the corner of his eye at the other person in the room. "What is it, Lord Momonga? Whatever you require, I am at your service." "And no, it's nothing, Sebas." The butler was smiling, but everything he said was somehow prickly. He respected Momonga absolutely, but it seemed he was a bit miffed about him going out without an escort. It had been like this ever since Momonga had returned from the surface and Sebas had caught him to give him advice. "I just can't get used to this." Momonga let his inner thoughts slip out. Whenever he was with Sebas, he couldn't help but think of former guild member Touch Me. Not that there was anything strange about that, considering Touch Me had created Sebas. But why did they have to be so similar? Both were equally scary when they were mad. Grumbling inwardly, he turned his attention back to the mirror. Once he figured out how to control this thing, it was taking a while. He was planning to teach Demiurge to use it. This was the idea he'd had for the warning network. Even though it would be easier to leave this up to his subordinates, he was doing it himself. He wanted them to think, "That's our ruler, all right," when they saw him working. That's why he couldn't just get fed up partway and abandon the project. He needed to figure out how to get the viewpoint up higher. If only there were a user manual, he thought as he continued working. How long had he been doing this? Probably not that long, but if he didn't get results, he would feel like he'd been wasting his time. With a glazed look on his face, he moved his hand absent-mindedly. The view changed dramatically. "Whoa," he shouted, a mix of surprise and triumph. It was like the cheer of a programmer in his 8th hour of overtime who made a random edit that somehow got his code to work. There was applause in response from Sebas, obviously. "Congratulations, Lord Momonga. I can only say that I would have expected nothing less." He'd only been using trial and error, so it didn't seem like the type of work that deserved so much praise. It made him a little suspicious, but the look on Sebas's face was genuine admiration. So he decided to accept the sentiment. "Thanks, Sebas, but I'm sorry to make you hang around here with me for so long." "What are you saying, Lord Momonga?" "As a butler, the reason I was created was to stand by and obey your orders. There is nothing whatsoever to feel sorry about. However, it is true that some time has passed. Would you like to take a break?" "No, that won't be necessary. I'm undead, so I don't get negative status effects like fatigue. If you need a break, though, you can take one. I don't mind." "I thank you for your kindness, my lord, but what butler can rest while his master is still at work? I also experience no physical fatigue, thanks to an item. I will accompany you until you are finished." Momonga had realized something about his conversations with the NPCs. They talked using some video game expressions as if they were totally normal skills, classes, items, levels, damage, negative status effects. There was something sort of funny about saying all those words with a straight face. Putting that minor issue aside, he was glad he could give orders using game lingo. He told Sebas he understood and threw himself back into operating the mirror. Then, after repeating similar movements over and over, he finally figured out how to adjust the height of his viewpoint. Grinning, he earnestly set about searching for people. After a while, something that looked like a village appeared. It was about 6 miles south of the great tomb of Nazareth. The village was surrounded by wheat fields, and there was a forest nearby. Pastoral was definitely the word for the scenery. At a glance, it didn't look as if the civilization were terribly advanced. As he zoomed in, something seemed off. Are they having a festival? Though it was early morning, people were going in and out of houses, running. Everyone seemed to be in a hurry. No, that's not it. Sebas, who had moved beside him, answered in a steely voice as he watched the scene with a piercing gaze. Sebas's hard tone gave Momonga a bad feeling, and he furrowed his brow as he zoomed in farther. Knight-like figures in full plate armor were brandishing swords at simply dressed people who seemed to be the villagers. It was a massacre. The villagers fell one by one each time a knight raised a sword. They must not have had any means of resistance.